McCamey Manor, located in Somerton, Tennessee, is a horror experience that takes upwards of 10 hours to complete, especially tailored to each individual's deepest, darkest fears, and requires you to sign a 40-page waiver detailing any torture you may be subjected to. Think of it as a real-life Saw experience, including the laser collars and rusty needle pits. No one has ever gotten through the whole tour, and many people have even gone to the hospital because of the experience. Russ McCamey, founder of the manor himself, has even said, "We've only had one death." That's like a pilot saying, "I've only crashed one plane." Yet, for some reason, 24,000 people are on the waiting list for McCamey this year. McCamey isn't the only fear-based attraction in the US, though. Around Halloween time, pre-COVID of course, you didn't have to go far to find a haunted attraction or scarefest. According to PR Newswire, if you throw in Hollywood, the horror industry is actually worth $7 billion and rising. All of this to elicit the emotion of fear. Simply put, fear is defined as an unpleasant emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger that has the power to control, excite, and even for some to seek. While fear is so common, it's one of our least understood and embraced emotions. What makes people tread so far out of their comfort zones, knowing it may be dangerous? Today, we'll first be warily peering at the different types of fear. Then we'll run in terror over to the biological and practical reasons behind why we seek fear out, before finally bravely exploring the extremes of fear and how best to deal with those extremes. First, let's warily peer at the different types of fear. But before we do that, we should know what exactly fear is. According to the National Library of Medicine, fear is caused by a compound called C9H9NO3, or adrenochrome. When adrenochrome is released into the body, it sets off a series of potentially life-saving events. Your heart and breathing rates pick up, and you may even develop tunnel vision, in an attempt to get your body ready to fight or to flee. Now that we know what exactly fear is, we can look into the different types of fear that we may experience. The first type of fear we'll look into here today is appropriate or logical fears. Logical fear tells you not to touch a hot stove or pet a bear. Bears are not cuddly friends, and you're not going to win one over with kisses. When in a dangerous situation, you may feel what people refer to as a gut feeling. A negative gut feeling may present itself as low-level apprehension or anxiety about a person or situation. Always listen to your gut feelings. They're your most primal type of fear and exist in every intelligent animal on Earth. Like when your dog barks very loudly at an unfamiliar delivery person, right in the middle of the most important Zoom call of the week. Now, these types of logical fears may manifest themselves a little differently in people nowadays, but they have the same base purpose. Have you ever been driving and felt the urge to slow down right before a sharp curve? Or maybe you've had a gut feeling before and canceled plans to go to a party that ended up getting the cops called. Whatever this gut feeling tells you to do, you should listen. You don't see a meerkat second guessing if it's going to be a lion's lunch after all. Not all types of fear are instinctual though, like acquired fear. Acquired fears come from experiences you've had or stories you've heard that have made you afraid of something. Not all fear comes from personal experience. As Katie Biddle from Emory University in Atlanta points out, fear can be learned through direct experience with a threat, but it can also be learned via social interaction, such as verbal warnings or observing others. Most of us haven't ever encountered a wild bear personally, but we do know to fear them due to other stories, like the story of Hugh Glass that's featured in the movie The Revenant. Dr. Rick Nauert for Psych Central studied the effects of experiencing a negative situation personally versus hearing about a negative situation from someone else. Dr. Nauert concluded that the amygdala, the part of the brain critical to acquiring fears, reacts the same way to direct and indirect negative experiences. For example, if you see a video of a hiker getting mauled by a bison, maybe you don't try and get a bison selfie on your next trip to scenic South Dakota. The third and final type of fear we'll look into here today is innate fear, or a fear you're born with. Fear of falling and fear of loud noises are the two innate fears that affect people today most often. Even as adults, people will instinctively look towards a car backfiring, or as you just experienced, a hammer hitting a desk. Now, logically, of course, we know that hammer hitting the desk isn't going to hurt us. But biologically, humans are programmed to fear loud and sudden noises. It's the same with the fear of falling. A perfect example of this is the roller coaster industry. Each and every year, 252 million people go to theme parks and carnivals with the intent to terrify themselves on thrill rides, like the Zipper, which is held together by a handful of screws and deemed safe by a 20-year-old Garney named Chad. According to Richard Stevens, a psychology lecturer at Keele University, perhaps the draw of roller coasters is the enjoyment of the visceral sensation of fear itself, much like watching a horror movie. Logically, we know they're safe. And the small chance of getting hurt is less than that rush of adrenaline you get rocketing down a peak after a slow build of anticipation as you're going up. Now, let's run into terror over to the biological and practical reasons behind why we seek fear out. Basically, we crave adrenaline, also known as epinephrine, which is secreted from the adrenal glands during stressful situations. When in a stressful situation, according to Cheyenne Lentz for The Insider, when we know we aren't in danger, like when we ride a roller coaster or watch a horror movie, our brains will take over the fight or flight response and use it to our advantage. That's why it's so exhilarating to be surprised by something that you logically know won't hurt you, but you know it could. This is why our heart races and we start to sweat, some of us more than others, while watching horror films. It's because it gives us a natural high. A natural high occurs when the brain gets something it enjoys and releases endorphins, or the feel-good chemicals. That's why people that are addicted to nicotine get endorphins when they smoke or vape, because their brains know that smoking releases endorphins, which then make them feel good. A similar process happens when most of us go to a haunted house or ride a roller coaster. Our brains release these endorphins to reward us for doing something that feels good. Finally, let's bravely explore the extremes of fear and how best to deal with those extremes. While fear is largely a good thing that keeps us safe and alert in our daily lives, it can take over some facets of people's lives. Some people have severe trypanophobia, or fear of needles, that stops them from getting blood transfusions, vaccinations, IVs, and other necessary medical procedures. Now, you may be sat there wondering, how is someone with a fear as bad as this guy possibly going to be able to overcome it? Well, according to helpguide.org, the quickest and most effective way to overcome an irrational fear is to simply face it head on. By facing an irrational fear, you're able to get back to your normal life without being absolutely terrified to go up more than 2 floors in a building or drive over 25 miles an hour, as well as just being able to enjoy getting scared again, like we all should. On the other end of that spectrum, however, there are people known as adrenaline junkies, who seek that rush of adrenaline to dangerous extremes, like base jumpers, who jump off of cliffs, buildings, bridges, anything they can climb, with no parachute or safety net whatsoever. Some adrenaline junkies will gamble away everything they have just for the thrill, and some will even break the law repeatedly in an attempt to get that rush of adrenaline that goes along with doing something that you know you shouldn't be, like hood surfing. Don't do that. According to Zonvillains for GoodTherapy.org, overcoming an addiction to adrenaline is about overcoming those unpleasant emotions that adrenaline addiction conceals. Ways to manage those unpleasant, impulsive emotions range from getting enough sleep to meditation and journaling. By overcoming an adrenaline to addiction, you are able to regain control of your life and make rational decisions that will benefit you in the long run. Additionally, people who are predisposed to adrenaline addiction, but are able to handle it, are more likely to be successful in their professional lives because their brains thrive under that kind of pressure. Fear is an integral part of a full and healthy life, but it has also become an integral part of the entertainment industry worldwide. Every October, people flock to fear-based attractions like McCamey Manor in the attempt to terrify themselves to the point of hospitalization and even death. People enjoy self-inflicted fear so much, we literally evolved to benefit from it. Think about that one for a second. We cheated Darwinian logic for the Chucky series. So remember, fear is an important part of a happy, healthy life. So embrace it and join me on a terrifying road trip down to Somerton, Tennessee.